Hello everybody and welcome back to Simon's Order Academy. Today we're going to be talking about Living City, the City of the Everspring. Really cool city, really fun to play. Narrative ties to obviously Alarielle and Sylvaneth, as well as the Wanderers sub-faction, which has since pretty much disappeared. But you can take the models in this city and they have unique buffs applicable to them. And it's just a fun city, really. So without further ado, let's get into it. So next we'll go over the battle traits for the Living City. The first one is Deep in Thyria. The army must be from Ghyran, and of course, because narratively Living City is in Ghyran, and it gives you access to the Everspring Diadem Relic, which is quite legitimate. So yeah, it gives you in your hero phase, you can heal 1 wound allocated to the bearer. By itself, it's okay. When you also have the Attuned to Nature battle trait a couple of points down, it makes, when you're healing 2 wounds every hero phase, it's quite significant and quite good, and I quite like that combination. City Wargroves, 1 in 4 units can be the Sylvaneth Battle Tome. Can be from the Sylvaneth Battle Tome, and they gain the Living City and the Cities of Sigmar keywords. So not huge at the moment because Sylvaneth Battle Tome is a little bit underpowered currently, but with Broken Realms, not Gorbad, whatever the new guy's name is, that next one coming, I hypothesize that there will be new Sylvaneth War Scrolls, and there are also War Scroll updates, and so I'm keen to see if Living City is going to get better once that Broken Realms is out. There are still a lot of combinations, I'll go over them later. So there are a few models in Sylvaneth that are still good with the Living City and Cities of Sigmar keywords. So Hunters of the Hidden Paths is probably one of the reasons why you're taking Living City. So instead of setting up a unit on the battlefield, 1 in 2 units can be set up as a reserve unit and can come on at the end of your movement phase 6 inches from the table edge and more than 9 inches from any enemy models. So really good. Means you can come on from the side of the board, obviously, and you can basically load a flank. So if they've gone like a little bit weak on one flank, you can put all your models in that flank and kind of push hard where you need to. It's really strong. It allows you to adapt your battle plan depending on how your opponent's deployed and how they're moving their models. And basically, it's just really good. Like it's a limited deep strike, but you can deep strike 50% of your units, so it's good. Not as good as the Stormcast one, but your army's better than Stormcast anyway. Attuned to Nature, so we've already covered this. All models heal a wound. It's not just one. Every single model that has been allocated any wounds heals 1 of those. Really good. And then the command ability that's unlocked is Strike Then Melt Away, and I've put towards in question mark because more often than not you will use this to melt towards an opponent and be able to charge them easier after you've shot. And we'll discuss the use of that later on as well. But basically at the end of your shooting phase, pick a Living City unit that is more than 9 inches from an enemy unit, wholly within 18 of a friendly Living City hero, and has shot in that shooting phase. That unit can make a normal move but cannot run. So the more than 9 inches from an enemy unit thing is important. Basically you can do it when you set up via Hunters of the Hidden Paths, obviously because you have to be more than 9 inches from an enemy unit. And then wholly within 18 of a friendly Living City hero is pretty easy to make happen, especially when you're placing models wherever the hell you want. That makes unit can make a normal move, so obviously it's better on models that have a higher movement characteristic. So Alarielle, for example, I think this is on the fly. I'm pretty sure that she is movement 14. So you can deploy her on the board, movement 16, deploy her on the board, shoot something with her Spear of Kurnoth, which has a range of 30, then you can spend a command point to move her a further 16. So basically she'll be able to move 32 inches in the 1 turn, and then charge something. So really good. If Alarielle was better, it would just be amazing. And you can use it on other things such as shooting units to move them back. So you put them on the 6 inches, shoot with them, then move them back 6 inches, just so that they're not within, the 16 inches of the unit they shot. And there are lots of combos. Basically, just have a think about what it potentially could be used with. Make sure it's got a gun and make sure that it's okay in combat, and you can probably use it well. And then finally, the access to the Viridian Pathfinders Battalion, which I'll cover on a slide a little bit later. Alright, so the command traits for the Living City. The first one is amazing. It probably is the one that you take every single time, because it's got 2 effects that are both very good. So add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target this general, and add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by this general. So +1 to saves and +1 to wound rolls with one of your weapons. Really, really strong. Obviously, you can't choose a mount, which is unfortunate. But one of the strongest command traits, I reckon, in the entire game. And there are so many good units to use it on the Living City. The ones that I would make note of are probably Durthu, so takes him to a 2+ armor save and also gives him a 2+ to wound on his Guardian Sword. The other one, it's actually not that bad on a Free Guild General on Griffin. So out of all the weapons that he's got, there are a couple that are 3+ to wound, and he's got a command trait. Command ability that gives him +1 hit when he charges, and so you can basically get him with his Sigmar Great Hammer. You can get him on 2s and 2s, Ren 2 D3 damage, which is really good. And then the third one I would point out, I mean, just the +1 to save rolls is good on a Frostheart Phoenix. Because you go to 3+ armor save, you can get a 2 or 2+ by casting a spell near him. Really good. He doesn't really care about the +1 to wound rolls. And then the final one that I would point out is probably a Celestin Prime. He on Dragon. Sorry, Lord Celestin on Star Drake. So you can get him to a 2+ save. If you have a Lord Castellant in the list, you can get into a 1+ save and healing on a 5+, which is also really strong, especially when you can heal 1 wound every hero phase. Yeah, really good. I think I had it on a other dude on Star Drake, the Drakesworn Templar, to get him to a 2+. There's no heal or anything, but a 2+ armor save is really strong, and he's a little bit cheaper, so it's pretty good. Forest Strider, so the general can run and charge, and units wholly within 12 ignore the deadly scenery rule. Nobody cares about the second bit. Deadly scenery rule is pretty dumb. Run and charge is not bad. I just don't know why you would ever take that over taking the Iron Oak Artisan, basically. So in comparison, it's a poor choice. And then finally, the Druid of the Everspring Circle. So if the general is a wizard, they know all the spells from the city lore, which is a bit average because like we only have 1 cast wizards really. I think you can get a Lord Arcanum on Toralon, which has 2 casts, which that might be useful on if you wanted to take that model in the Living City. But if they aren't, the best application of this is if they aren't, you know 1 spell from the lore and can cast it in the hero phase. So pretty similar to you pretty much have this item in every single city, which is good. It's fine. I think out of the 3, this would probably be second, so you definitely always take Iron Oak Artisan. Second would be Druid of the Everspring Circle, and then if you, for whatever reason, wanted to take Forest Strider, I guess you could. But I'd probably recommend Iron Oak Artisan over all the others by a fair margin. And then we get to the Artefacts of Power. So the first one is the Spear of the Hunt. As you can see in the picture, that guy's got a spear. I thought it would be relevant. The bearer can start at the start of the fight at the start of the combat phase. In addition, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, and that weapon gets an extra rend. It's still good. So if you put that on Durthu, his Guardian Sword becomes Rend 3, and he can fight at the start of the combat phase. Really good. I mean, half the time he's fighting at the start of the combat phase effectively anyway, because he stomps on his target. But still crazy good. The reason I put the Nomad Prince there is because in one of my lists I've given this to. Actually, I think I gave him the Deepmire Cloak. But with the Spear of the Hunt, he becomes Rend 2. With Iron Oak Artisan and the Spear of the Hunt, he's a 5-win model. He's got a 2+ armor save. He's got 4 attacks, 3 to hit, 2s to wound, Rend 2 damage 2. Really good. And fighting first for a 120 point hero that also makes everything -1 hit. Really good. I like the Nomad Prince, even though he's a bit expensive. You can do it on again other models like the Lord Celestin on Star Drake. He's got a couple of Rend 2 weapons. He's got a couple of Rend 1 weapons which you make Rend 2 using the Spear of the Hunt, which is quite good. The next one on the list is the Deepmire Cloak, which I am a big fan of. Basically, the Deepmire Cloak allows a bearer with a wounds characteristic of 6 or less to be basically immune to missile weapons while they're in cover. So really strong, especially in this shooting meta. It also has the secondary effect of if you've got 7 or more wounds and you're in cover, you -1 hit with missile weapons. I don't think you take it for that. Yeah, I don't think you would ever take it for that. You take it for the cannot be targeted in cover, because it doesn't mean -1, it's -1,000 to hit, which is 1,000 times better. Yeah, and I really like it, especially on the Nomad Prince again, because he sits in cover and can use his debuff, basically, and you have to get to him in melee to get rid of him, which I really like and I think is really strong. And then finally the Wardroth Horn. So once per battle in the hero phase, you can use this artifact to give all Sylvaneth units in the army +1 attack to all of their melee weapon profiles until the start of your next hero phase. So you potentially get 2 hero phases out of it. 2 turns out of it, because you can give, if you get doubled, then your opponent has 2 turns in a row, and it basically works for those 2 turns. Again, it's not great right now. Sylvaneth aren't in a great place. Wait for the updates to see if there's anything there that they've completely missed that they didn't realize you could give +1 attack to, and then potentially try and apply this there. So the spell lore is pretty amazing. So 3 good spells. The first one is Life Surge, casting value 6. Friendly model within 18 inches of the caster heals D6 wounds. Just really good. It's casting value 6. If you take a Hurricanum, it's on a 5 pretty much all the time. If you take a Sorceress with some Dark Shards or Bleak Swords, it's on a 4. Really strong. You can also take it on Fighty Wizards. Examples of this would be Fighty, Tree Lord Ancient, or I think more likely is on Dryka. You can take this spell on her and she can heal herself in addition to the one at the start of every turn, start of every hero phase. Pretty strong. I like it. And then if you use this to heal that Frostheart Phoenix, as I was talking about before, every wound that you heal is worth 2 wounds effectively because of the 4-up after save, and in addition to the extra 2 that you heals turn, it's just you basically will never kill that Frostheart Phoenix, which is what we love about the Frostheart Phoenix. It doesn't die. The next one is Cage of Thorns. It's casting value of 7. Might think it's a bit high, but there's a reason for that. Choose one enemy unit within 18 of the caster. That unit halves their move characteristic, and if they do move, they suffer D6 mortal wounds. Really strong. So even if it was just a movement debuff, it'd be good. But the fact that if they ever move, they take D6 mortals, and it says the next move that they make, which means that it can be a normal move, it can be a retreat, it can be a charge move, it can be a pile-in, any of those. It takes D6 mortal wounds. Really good. Put it on Severeth. This will really make him sad, because he has so many moves out of outside of the movement phase. So it's just the next time they make a move. Really good. And yeah, especially if you put it on wound 4 or 5 heroes like this pesky skink priests that run to keep up with the skinks to buff them. If they move at all, they may take 4 or 5 wounds. You've got a 50% chance to roll a 4+, and they'll just be dead. It's really good. I love it. Finally, Iron Oak Skin. Casting value of 6. 1 friendly unit wholly within 18 is -1 to wound with any attacks that target it until the start of your next hero phase. So, the best combo for this, and it's a 6. Like 6 for -1 to wound is so good. Combos very well with the Frostheart Phoenix, because he's already got -1 to wound in a bubble around him. If you cast it within whatever the range is for Empowered, let me just get that up for you because that is actually relevant. The Attune to Magic, if a friendly wizard within 12 of this model casts a spell, so you cast this within 12 of him, you give him +1 armor save, and you give him an extra -1 to wound, so he's -2 to wound, and he's 2+ armor save in combat. Really, really good. And of course on basically everything, -1 to wound is great, especially when you can combo it with the Battle Mage from Lore of Hysh. Ignore the guy on the right, he's not from Hysh, but I recommend you take a Battle Mage from the Heavens, and -1 to wound, not Heavens, Light, the Realm of Light. -1 hit and -1 to wound on a unit, real strong. So overall, yeah, an amazing spell lore. 3 spells that you always want to cast and will always be useful, and make sure you think about which ones you take on which wizards, because there are no bad ones. So the Viridian Pathfinders Battalion. It's very sad. It's kind of thematic. I don't know why they insisted that you just had to take Wildwood Rangers and no Eternal Guard. And no Sisters of the Watch or Sisters of the Thorn. Like it's just it's a big missed opportunity. You could have made it quite good. Costs 140 points, requires 1 Nomad Prince, 3 units of Wildwood Rangers, and 0 to 1 units of Wild Riders. And gives you +1 to charges if you set up using the Hunters of the Hidden Past battle trait. So not bad. When you're taking Wild Riders, they do get +1 to charge as well from their Musician. So they are +2 to charges when they come on from the board edge. So like it's not completely horrible, but you're only allowed to take 1 unit of Wild Riders, which is, maybe in some special list you'd want to take 3, and give them all +1 to charge, but apparently that's too strong. The Wildwood Rangers also get +1 to charge, but they're, I don't know, I think they're too expensive. I'm not a huge fan of the Wildwood Rangers. At just a baseline, and the Wild Riders also don't really hit that hard, but you can take this if you feel like it, basically. But for 140 points, no, I wouldn't even bother. Maybe, if this was one of those battalions that was like 80, 100 points, you might consider it, if you're trying to get some stuff on the table that you haven't used before. But I wouldn't waste your time playing with this battalion if you're trying to be competitive. So how it plays on the table. I think that the common perception is that the best way to play it is to put 50% of units off the board ready to come on in a following turn from the hidden paths, and put your other good models off to the side, basically, and bring them on either turn 1 or turn 2. So I think the best way to take advantage of this is to take disposable units to start on the board, for example, single gyrocopters and Aether Wings, to allow more things to deploy in reserve. And I like to ensure that any unit I put in reserve has a way to use the Strike the Melt Away ability, or their shooting is good enough they don't need to move afterwards unless I want to. So the best choice that I think for this is either Handgunners or Sisters of the Watch, because basically their shooting is good enough they don't need to move afterwards, as mentioned before, especially when they have a Hurricane behind them. The main reason for this is that if there's a unit that tries to split away from your opponent's main army to deal with them, as well as getting shot the turn you brought them on, they will also copper stand and shoot when they try and charge either of these units, and that's why I think these are the best shooting units. Why I don't like crossbows in this same space, because basically if they can get anything into them, they will just die. But if you charge Handgunners, 3s and 3s, rend 1/1 damage, 30 shots, or Sisters of the Watch are again 30 shots because they don't get double shooting when they stand and shoot. So 30 shots, 2s and 3s, no rend 1 damage, but 6s to wound, do a mortal wound in addition. So if you're standing and shooting on a 2+ to hit, most of the time you'll be doing 4 mortal wounds in addition to everything else. And obviously when you shot the previous phase, you've probably done 8 mortal wounds as well. So 12 mortal wounds is the average of what any big monster has pretty much in the game, maybe 14. But you're going to sneak through some other attacks as well. So I think it's really strong. In history, I've also run Concussors to shoot with their Storm Blasts. So they're normally on a 4+ to hit, but with the Hurricane behind them, they're a 3+ to hit. And if you do something like I've played a couple of games with a Dregswan Templar with the Concussors, and he shoots his bow first against a target, then the Concussors can be on a 2+ to hit, doing D3 mortal wounds per each hit that you get. And then you move them 10 inches with Strike and Melt Away, and then charge in the same turn. Really, really strong. I'm just going to mention the Frostheart Phoenix again, just because I think he's really good in this list. 3+ armor save at baseline with Iron Oak Artisan. Realm Artifact, let him heal 2 wounds a phase. Cast Iron Oak Skin on him within 12 inches of him, and makes him 2+ armor save and -2 to wound. And he also makes Phoenix Guard battle line. So really, really strong. Probably my pick of a general. But you can also run Durthu. Strong contender for general. He gets a 2+ armor save at base and +1 to wound with his Guardian Sword. So at base, 3 attacks, 3s and 2s, rend 2, d6 damage. If you give him the Spear of the Hunt, he becomes rend 3 and strikes at the start of every phase. Really good. And then d6. I wrote d6 damage. What I meant was 6 damage, obviously, for the top tier. And then finally, if you bring something like a Tree Lord Ancient to bring a Wildwood onto the table, he goes up to 5 attacks. Wardroth Thorn on someone else. Maybe if you took the crappy Battalion, he can go up to 6 attacks. There's lots of little combos you can do. If he's within 10 inches of a Hurricane, he can be on 2s and 2s. And he's actually a really good model to use Strike Then Melt towards, using his Verdant Blast missile weapon, which is a 15-inch range, 3s and 3s, rem 1, d3 damage. So basically you can snipe a hero behind a unit first, or you can snipe a screen a lot of the time, and then melt towards and then charge. He only moves 5, so it's not as good as the Concussors, but he's also 140 points cheaper than the Concussors. But basically how I play it is that I've got a big block of Phoenix Guard in the middle with the Frostheart Phoenix. The Frostheart Phoenix pushes out to engage models that I don't want getting into my main battle line. And then you bring on 30 Sisters of the Watch with a Hurricane behind them from one table edge, and just absolutely hose something down, and then basically push that flank for the rest of the game. And the Frostheart Phoenix can do that. He's a really good model to do it. yeah, it's a really fun city to play in. It gives you, being able to put half your army off the board and bring them on gives you lots of options. It's a little bit limited in the 6-inch board edge, but you can fit the majority of stuff onto 6 inches anyway, except for Alariel. So don't put her in the pathways because she can't come on the board. So I've got 2 example lists here for anyone that is thinking about playing the game. The first one is a very Sylvaneth heavy army, which a lot of people seem to like, so I thought I'd include that. And then the second one is a unit that includes, a list that includes 3 very, very, very strong units, and I think could be a fairly strong competitive option for Living City. So the first one, Branch Wraith with Iron Oak Skin. You've got the Spirit of Dirthu, who's the general as previously mentioned. He's got Iron Oak Artisan and the Spear of the Hunt, so he's got all those combos going. And then you've also got a Tree Lord Ancient who has Life Surge. So this combo basically is that you've got, as I mentioned in my Settlers Gain, the top 5 units for Settlers Gain video, you've got 3 models that are 1 in 4 that all buff each other in one way or another. So the Spirit of Dirthu, obviously just very good on his own. He's got lots of good things on his War Scroll and from the items to make him strong. The Tree Lord Ancient brings a cast, but it also brings a Wildwood to the table for you. So if the Spirit of Dirthu is fighting wholly within 8 inches of that, he gets +2 attacks to his Guardian Sword, which is that 6 damage weapon, and in this list has +1 hit, really good. +1 to wound. So really good. So Tree Lord Ancient drops the forest down. Spirit of Dirthu fights wholly within 8 inches of it, basically to fight people off. And then the Branch Wraith is there. She's another leader. She's another caster to hang back. But at the same time, she can also use her spell, her War Scroll spell, to summon 10 Dryads into that Wildwood that the Ancient has dropped. So you've got summoning in an order list. Really, really weird feeling. But really, really strong. I mean, strong. Relative. It's pretty good. And then for Battalion, you've got 40 Free Guild Guards, so a big block. You've got 10 Free Guild Guards, who basically just filler for units. And then you've got 30 Free Guild Handgunners in that combo with the Celestial Hurricane that come on from the side, so really strong. And then to fill out the rest of the list, you've got 3 Aether Wings and 2 Gunstock Gun Haulers, basically for mobility and for getting your drops up high enough that you can take 3 characters. And then you get an extra command point, because having an extra command point is always good in Living City, because you want to be able to move basically after you shoot, and it gives your Spirit of Dirthu or your Tree Lord Ancient some more mobility essentially. And then finally, I just chucked in the Glade Worm because you've got two Sylvaneth casters, and the Glade Worm gives you some extra healing and gives you some mortal wound output, and it's only, it's cast on a 7, but when you can heal your stuff, or you can deal mortal wounds to stuff, it's really good. And you just have to be wholly within 6 inches to heal, or after you've moved, anything within 1 inch takes D3 mortal wounds on a 3+. So it's not great, but it's 30 points, not horrible. So the pros, the list heavily uses Sylvaneth heroes. I kind of modified the list I took to the local heat. I think that one had an Anointed General to get Phoenix Guard into it, but I thought I'd present a list without Phoenix Guard that I thought was still okay. It's got 158 wounds at 2,000 points, which is very strong. That's a lot of wounds for not much, for the amount of bodies in the list. It's really good. And it's got a good utilization of Hunters of the Hidden Paths with the Handgunners and the Hurricanum. The cons, it's heavily reliant on the Aether Wings for getting the drops high enough, and the Gun Haulers, and it's fun to play. But because you're taking 3 Sylvaneth heroes as you're in the heroes, the Branch Wraith is probably fairly costed. The other 2 probably not so much. Tree Lord Ancient could come down a bit. Spirit of Dirthu he's very swingy. Some games he'll just be amazing. Some games he won't do anything. It's fun. It's a fun list to play. I'd recommend you playing that if you want to get your Sylvaneth units in there. The second list is the list that I think is very close to the most competitive Living City list that you can build. I haven't played it yet. I've got all the models. I will play it at some point in the near future, and obviously post-op results. So lots of big, strong units that are fairly independent. Sisters of the Watch, Phoenix Guard, Concussors. So the idea with this list is that the Concussors and the Sisters of the Watch and the Hurricanum come on from the side of the board. Your Freeguild Guard and your Phoenix Guard start on the table with your Nomad Prince and your Branch Wraith, and essentially really strong flanking force. Potentially too strong. That's one of the cons that I haven't put on here, but potentially you're doing too much damage on that flank, and you probably do overkill if there's just one unit there that's kind of flanking. There's not a lot you can do. You're basically going to shoot that unit off and then maybe not get as much, but still strong. So very powerful use of the Strike the Melt Away or Strike the Melt Towards with the Concussors. They're really good, while the Sisters of the Watch basically move up the board shooting stuff. They don't really want to move, so if you can bring them on, like your opponent forgets to zone out the back of the board, you can bring them on from behind them and sit in there for the entire game. Really good. Your opponent then has to split their army to come and get you. I really like that. Nomad Prince, so my favourite old Wood Elf Highborn model is the guy that is holding the Greatsword on top of the vine. I don't know if you've seen my model that I got painted up, but go look at my Twitter, Zweihander Hall, it's there somewhere. It's literally my favourite model ever in the entirety of Warhammer, and so you get to use him, which is great. But basically when he is sitting in cover with the Deep Mire Cloak, he cannot be targeted by ranged weapons, and what that means is that you sit in cover and you just bird of prey things, heroes for -1 to hit, -1 to cast, -1 to basically everything they do within 18 inches, and they have no way to get you back, except with magic, but don't let them do that. It's just really good and really fun. The concept that obviously this, if you are in Battalion scenarios, you're probably going to struggle a bit. 30 Sisters of the Watch really want to stand still, but in this list they have to move basically to get onto objectives. So that's probably the best thing you can do with them. And then, you know, Phoenix Guard and Concussors you will have output in this list, but the question is, can you do enough to get on two scenarios? One, Behemoth in the Hurricanum, which is coming on from the side, and then, you know, the heroes, you've only got a Nomad Prince and a Branch Wraith to get onto objectives, so like Places of Arcane Power, you're probably going to struggle. But those scenarios aren't played that much in tournaments that I play in, so, you know, I still think it's very strong. And that's us done for the day. Hope that this has been a helpful video for anybody who wants to play the Living City. I will probably do a follow-up video next week, similar to the one I did with Settlers Gain, so the top 5 Sylvaneth units that I would run in the Living City, so that you can watch that and maybe get some inspiration on what you take. I'll give you a hot tip, Alariel probably isn't in there, which is quite sad, but we're desperately waiting for her War Scroll update or just an entire book update. I really want to see what the Flying Piper does. It's a cool model. It would be nice to be able to include something good in the list, and if it buffs stuff, it'd be great. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you like it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. New videos every week. I've got a Patreon now. So the link will be in the description underneath kind of the time tags. If you want to sling a couple of dollars my way, that would be super, because I had to return my last mic. It was rubbish. And now I'm saving up for another one because I've also got a wedding in June. So I have no money. If you've got any feedback, please either comment below the video or hit me up on Twitter. That handle again is Zweihander Hall, ZWEIHANDER. Hall, Hall. It'll also be in the description of the video. So feel free to, you know, come and talk to me about Cities of Sigmar, because I love Cities of Sigmar. Thanks very much, guys, and I will see you all next week.